You see them everywhere. These dumbass thumbnails that are brighter than fucking Beetlejuice just so they can grab kids' attention. And today, I'll be teaching you how to make them. Not these ones, but you get what I mean. People have asked me on multiple different occasions how I edit my videos and how I make my thumbnails, and today I'll be teaching you guys about the latter. We'll be using Photoshop CS6 from 2012, yes, very fucking old software. It isn't free, but magically, if you go down in the description, all of a sudden it's free. I don't know who put that there. Oh yeah, one more thing before we get into the video. Memberships. I'm deactivating the Patreon. It's not really getting any attention, and trying to manage my audience on 2 separate platforms, that's gonna be like impossible. Channel memberships will probably be a thing around the time this video is uploaded. There's gonna be a $1 tier and I think a $4 tier. It's the same thing from Patreon, just cheaper. Let's stop talking about my shit channel for just a second and actually get into this though. So before you hop into Photoshop, you need to know how to shoot your thumbnail. So assuming you're using your phone or a camera, how do you shoot for a thumbnail? When shooting your thumbnail, be sure you're using the 16:9 aspect ratio of YouTube before shooting your pictures. I think this knocks some iPhones off the list. I don't fucking know. I don't give 2 shits about iOS 14, so I don't know. You'll also need to make sure your image isn't too warm or too cold. You can fix this in post, but the better it looks while it's shot naturally, the better it'll be for the edit. Other quick tips I recommend for people shooting on phones: grid lines, so you can line up your shots. Please make sure your autofocus doesn't fuck you over. And when putting yourself in the thumbnail, try to stand off to the left or stand off to the right. This is so you can put in other graphics and text without having any space constraints later. Lastly, make sure your images are as high resolution as possible. This will not only make your images look better, it'll be way easier to edit these things together. The more pixel data you have, the easier this will be. Alright, so now we're in Sony Nevada Photo Editor. First thing you'll be doing is making a new project, and I forgot my fucking one thing, hold on. Yeah, apparently my keystroke thing won't work. I fucking hate PCs so goddamn much. If you're on console and like it, don't fucking switch to PC, it just creates unnecessary fucking issues. You're gonna have to create a new project, so Control-Alt-N, since I'm gonna have to fucking verbally say it every goddamn time. Change the name to whatever you want, it doesn't matter. Make sure it's 1080p, and when it comes to color depth, I just use 8-bit, you can use 16 if you want, but thumbnails have to be smaller. They have to be smaller than 2 megabytes to be uploaded to YouTube, so using JPEGs at 8-bit, it works perfectly. You can also change your background contents to white or a color. I just keep it transparent, hit OK, and now you have a 1080p transparent project open. Next thing you'll want to do is import your photos using Control-O. This will bring up your thing. You see how this looks a little bit smaller than our project? If you hit Control and then A, that selects everything. Then you can hit Control-C to copy, and then you can go over to your cock project, and you can hit Control-V to paste it. Now you can see it doesn't fit in our project. You can just hit Control-T to transform, and just stretch it. That's it. As long as it's in the 16:9 aspect ratio, you won't stretch it like any weird way like this, or like that. You know, with a 16:9 ratio, I could just zoom out, hitting Control then minus or Control plus, and let's just stretch this over here. Wow, this is like, I look dead inside. The first step I take in my projects is usually cutting out my subject from my background. Now, there's 2 ways you can do this: automatic and manual transmission. The automatic transmission would be the W key, literally. This tool right here, called the quick select tool, you want to use the regular one, just the quick selection tool. If your subject is very definable from your background, like see my brown hair on this white background, that's a very definable edge. It's actually not that difficult to use something like the quick select tool to just select your shit, and then you can use the settings like the minus brush, I don't fucking know. I don't know the names of any of this shit, I just know how to use it. Then you can, get rid of all the shit that you missed, and you can create your own edge. This is not the project to be doing that. The edges are super fuzzy, there's colors that will mix, like these reds right here. It'll be very difficult to just use the quick select tool to do this. So I'll be doing this manually, but if you have an image like this, where your subject is very clearly definable from the background, you can select it, and you can use, like I said, use all the tools. And this is actually a brush, so if you want to change the size of the brush, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. I keep it around 10 usually, it's just a healthy average. So we're just going to select our subject. White parts and parts that are lighter with the quick selection tool will not be selected, so you're going to have to go through a few times and check out, make sure everything's there. This is something you're only going to want to do for the quick select tool as well. Right click and then hit refine edge, and do you see how there's these little like blocky shit. It's pixelated. You can very easily fix this by smoothing it out. Now, smoothing, it's very self-explanatory. It smooths out the edges, but it does get these little artifacts right here. I can't even really call them artifacts, but it's just a part of the smoothing. The lines get smoothed so much that it leaves part of the background in, so I'll usually pair it with a little bit of contrast, which makes the edge just a little bit harsher, and then I'll knock down the smoothing a little bit. When you mix the two settings, smoothing and contrast, no, not color contrast, this is all about the edges. When you mix these two settings, you can create very, very defined lines, because the contrast will make it a sharper, more defined edge, while softening it will get rid of all that pixelation. So now you have this very definable line between your character and the background. Once you have your outline as crispy as you want it, you can hit OK. You can hit Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And now you have a completely separate layer for your subject and your background. The manual way of doing this is a little bit more time consuming, and I'm not really going to show that too much in this video because it's difficult as hell. You can use the pen tool by hitting P for the pen, or you can go over here, right click, pen tool. This is basically, it's exactly as it looks. You go around your character, you create your outline, but one quick tip, if you want rounded edges, you see this point right here and this point right here. If you go in the middle, you can see a little plus. You can add points wherever you like. You can just add points and then you can hold control and move them around and they bend. But you see this one right here? See how this point was already here? When I hit control and move this around, it just moves it around as a point. For you to be able to bend or curve things, you'll have to create a point in between two points that already exist, like this one, and then you see these two lines show up. You can bend these around, you can, bend your layer, or you can change them. It's really detailed. You can actually do a lot. So you can stretch out one area, or you can stretch out the other, and you can do all this other cool shit. Then you can hold control again, move this around, hold control, move these around. It's super fun, super duper fun. Once you're done with that, you go back to your last point by clicking on it. If you don't, it'll fuck up. And then you can click the first point and it makes a shape. Now you just right click it, hit make selection, and then you can choose to feather it by a radius. I usually do it by 1 pixel, because if you don't feather it at least by 1 pixel, it gets this very sharp defined edge that's kind of dog shit looking. I just recommend 1 pixel. If you want to do more, you can. And then it's the same thing, copy, paste, and then you got a perfect cutout. That is separating your subject from the background. Next up, we're going to talk about that background just a little bit, and we'll talk about it more later. This is something I will only do for Fortnite thumbnails, and this is for you Fortnite YouTubers out there, very specifically, because I've tried doing it with pictures of my room, like pictures like this. I've tried doing it with pictures like this. It doesn't work. I mean, it does. It's just you have to be a fucking Photoshop god to make it work properly. Let's say you want to move your subject around. Well, okay, now you have to move the background around because there's also another copy of your subject back there. But then you have this issue right here. This is something you can fix, providing the background is simple like this one. If you want to move your subject around, let's say we want to move Batman back so we have more space over here to put text and shit. Well, then we move the background back, and all of a sudden, we have this empty space. Well, this is actually really easy to fix. Again, providing the background is simple. You can hit M, or you can choose the Marquee tool up here, right below your pointer tool. If it's a square, if it's not a square, if it's like a circle, you can just right click on it, and you can hit the rectangular Marquee tool. Then you select a area that is not too big, not like this big, not like this big, but more like that big, just right. I'll hit Control, okay. Make sure your right layer is selected. Make sure the background layer is selected. Then hit Control C, Control V, and then you have this little separate layer right here. Now what you could do is hit Control T, which is transform, and just stretch it. And then you hit Enter. That easy. These two are now separate layers. If you'd like to merge them into one, all you have to do is make sure you select the layer that the background shit is on. This little strip right here. Oh shit. You see that? It's not even bottoming out properly. Look at that. Not perfect, but we're gonna cover that up. Now, what you wanna do with these layers is you wanna take them, make sure they're above your background layer, hit Control E to merge them. Now that just merged the other two. If you wanna merge that in the background, you just hit Control E, making sure that layer is above the background layer, and now it's a full background. So now you can move your background around just a little bit more if you'd like to. The next step in this guide to suicide is text. Now this is my workflow, yours could be different, but I like to do my text after I get my background all situated. I've always used custom fonts, you guys know this. I currently use the Smallville TV show font, and I'd recommend people use custom fonts as well. The basic default dance Windows shit, it's boring. It's real fucking boring. I'll leave a link in the description for a fonts website where you can download custom fonts or TV show fonts, probably fan fonts, so that's what I'll leave in the description. But the biggest mistake I see people making when using custom fonts, or really just any type of text in their videos, thumbnails, is not giving their Bro, shut the fuck up, trash truck. I hear you out there, you stupid bitch. The biggest mistake I will see YouTubers making with their text is not giving it any contrast from the background. It'll be like white text on a yellow background. It'll look fucking... No, that's not the way to do it, dude. When your text in your background don't look too dissimilar and they start to blend a lot, you should use the oldest Photoshop tricks in the Bible. Outer glow, drop shadow. Sometimes at the same time, but only if you're extremely fucking gay. Yeah, fucking gay. I wasn't gonna say it, but I said it. I don't care. What you want to do is you want to select your layer that has... It could be anything. It could be a text layer. I don't know why I wasn't doing text this entire time. With Photoshop, when you want to use text, obviously it's gonna be T. No fucking shit. That's BTA, man. BTS, man. If you want to change color, you just hit Control and then A to select everything, and then you go to color and you can do whatever you want. Let's change the color to the color of the background for an example. So we'll hit T, and then we'll click on our text, hit Control A to select everything, and then we'll select the background color. Now, we don't have that much contrast from the background. It looks fucking terrible, to be honest. And to be honest, you shouldn't do this. You should always make sure it's a different color from the background, but let's say, for whatever reason, it needs to be a certain color. So you'll want to click on either your layer that has your person, if you want outer glow or drop shadow on them, but we're talking about text, so you want to go to your text layer, hit this little effects button right down here, and then outer glow. So now we have this little glow on the edge. These are the settings that I use. You guys will probably always see that little black outline on all the text I have in all of my videos and my thumbnails. What I'll do is I'll go to screen, I'll change it from screen, or this is the blend mode, change it from screen to normal, and then the opacity or the transparency, I'll turn that up to 100%, which means it's not 100% transparent, it means it's 100% solid. You can change the color to, mine's always black, just always, for no reason at all, and then you can change the spread, which is like the, I don't know, these two work together. This is size will get you fuzziness, spread will get you a harsh outline, and you use both of them in tandem to get bigger outlines for shit. So what I'll usually do is I'll keep my size down to something really low, but I'll keep my spread up to something really high. And by something really high, I mean 100%. That gives you this very harsh, very straight outline on your text or whatever you're putting it on. And then when you up the size, you can make it bigger, infinitely large. I like to keep it around 10%. And then when it comes to drop shadow, it's almost the same thing, but you're using shadows and you're using a light source. With drop shadow, I usually do the same thing. I'll change it to normal, but I won't change the opacity because shadows are shadows. You can change the distance, you can change the spread, which means how, I guess, thick it is. I mean, spread kind of defines it a little bit more too on the edge, so I really wouldn't suggest doing too much with that. Size, that spreads it out, makes it fuzzy. That should just be called fuzziness. And then you can change your angle too if you want it from that angle, that angle, that angle. I don't really use drop shadow all that much, although I do use outer glow, so I will put that on real quick. Remember, you can do these things to your other layers, like here, real quick. I'll add a shadow to Batman, real quick, just to show you guys. So you can change the distance, bunch of other cool shit, doesn't fucking matter. And now that your text is set up, it's time for the background. Yay! I'll usually end up changing the color of my backgrounds because why the fuck not? You don't have to do this, but if you do want to, you can just hit, go to your background layer, hit image, adjustments, and then color balance. And then you, assuming you know how to fuck with values, you can make this any color you want. You can also change hue, but hue changes all the colors in different ways, which is why I really don't use hue and saturation to fuck with things. We'll make this a reddish, and that looks terrible. I don't care. Now, like I said, you don't necessarily have to do this, but one thing I do always do with my backgrounds is I'll usually down the exposure by like 5 to 10% to create a little bit of a disconnect between the character or the subject and the background itself. Now, this will look terrible at first, but if you change the color and you fuck around with the blurriness of the background a little bit, which we'll be talking about later, then it won't look so bad. But what I'll do is, usually I'll go to image, then adjustments, and curves. I don't actually use exposure because it doesn't work as well. Curves is like scientific, it's very cool. I'm not even 100% sure how it works. But you can take this line and you can bend it a little bit down or up, depending on if you want brighter or darker shit. Like I said, I usually down it by a few percent. Usually I'll end up turning the curves of my subject up just a little bit, because not only does it create a disconnect, but usually my subject's darker than my background anyways. Yeah, the shitty outline I did is kind of starting to show. This outline, I fucking did this outline on this Batman the other day for a thumbnail. It didn't look this bad. I don't know why it looks this bad. This shit right here is what the smoothing does to your outline. So maybe dial it back a little bit and make sure your outline is also a little bit more accurate than mine is. Next step is a little bit of background blur to, again, create a little bit more of a disconnect between the background and the subject so you can see the subject a little bit more prominently. But I only use this to cover things up usually. If I have mistakes in a thumbnail, if the background looks super dog shit, if the background's full of a bunch of items, like when I shoot thumbnails sometimes, I'll shoot them over here. And all of this shit is in the background. It's a bunch of different colors, it's a bunch of different objects, and it usually isn't blurry enough. So what I'll do is I'll go to filter, I'll go to blur, and then I'll go to field blur. Now, I only usually end up doing a little bit of field blur because if you do too much, the character or the subject behind your subject will start to show through. Do you see this? Once it actually loads, you'll start to get this shit right here. Like on the bottom, you'll start to see the background. That's because you blur it too much and the edges start to feather out a fuck ton. So I recommend blurring it by no more than a few percent. And if you have to, you might have to stretch out the background if you have this type of situation, but most of you shouldn't. I'm kind of just stupid when I fucking do this. God damn it. Hit the OK boomer button once you're done. And now you got some background blur. I am going to stretch this background out just a little bit because it's starting to fuck with my fucking anxiety. And then I'm going to stretch the Batman out just a little bit because he's going to mess with my anxiety as well. After you fucks with your background a little bit, it's time to put in some PNGs and other images to spice up your thumbnail, give it that final pop before exporting it. Anime lines. Everyone fucking hits me up about anime lines. I've gotten at least 8 to 10 messages about anime lines. I'm dead fucking serious. Anime lines are the easiest Photoshop thing on the planet. I don't even describe things anymore. I just call them things. Alright, so I just threw some anime lines into Premiere, or... Wow. I just threw some anime lines into... I was about to say After Effects. What the fuck is wrong with me? This is Photoshop. So you got your lines, and it's a black background. Whatever do I do? Hit Control A to select everything. Then we're going to copy it. We're going to go over to our project. I'm going to get rid of... Oh my god. I did all this work outside of the original project. When this shit happens, when you accidentally do a bunch of work and a composition, or preferably a project, that is not the same resolution as a thumbnail on YouTube, which is 1920 by 1080, what I would do after the thumbnail's done is I would merge all the layers into one, and then I would copy that layer over to our project over here. Because I completely fucking fucked that up. You see, even us YouTubers make mistakes. In fact, us YouTubers make mistakes more than anybody on the fucking YouTube, in the universe. Back in our anime lines, we'll hit Control A to select all, Control C to copy, and then Control V. But oh no, CUDA, it's fucking blank. How am I gonna change that? I'm so fucking lost. Whatever will I do? Well, put it below your fucking character, and then change, see this? Normal? Screen. Done. And now you got anime lines. Now you could also throw some other PNGs in here. I mean, most of these things are just like, if you just find PNGs, they're transparent, and then you could just throw them in there. I would recommend using PNGs that pertain to your video as best as possible, but I'd also recommend PNGs that sell emotions, which is why sometimes I'll use emojis in my my thumbnails. Well, actually, I think I've only done that once or twice. When you start to sell an emotion in a thumbnail, especially using other images and effects, people will click on that video. If you go take a look at my channel real quick, I'll proof of concept. How to turn old desktops into gaming PCs. I use pictures of the parts I talk about in that video, one of the graphics cards and the power supply. And then over here, almost perfect keyboard. See those emojis? That was selling an emotion. Now that video wasn't really emotionally driven, but when you sell an emotion in a thumbnail, people are more likely to click on it, even if that video isn't emotionally driven by whatever you're talking about. So use PNGs and images that'll make the viewer feel something, or see that you feel something, and pair those with images that relate to the video so people can get a general understanding of what's going on. Your thumbnail and your title are your video to that person. And that's what people don't really understand. Not only does your thumbnail have to be on point, but your thumbnail and your title have to match each other 100%, and your thumbnail must sell that person on some type of emotion. That doesn't mean you have to go on your thumbnails like this. You can very easily sell an emotion without looking like Linus fucking Tech Tips, okay? Before I leave, I must give my children a few more pointers. This is just some of the information that I've gathered over the years. I'm a YouTuber, been doing it for a while, and I'm not that big, but through using Photoshop and Premiere, I have learned quite a few things. Don't put anything in the lower right-hand corner. Why? Timestamp. That actually isn't something I learned. That's something someone in the comments told me. I forgot who that was, but thank you. Always check your thumbnail via your phone before you actually use it for a video. I will always export my thumbnails to Google Photos, and then I'll download them on my phone and take an extensive look at them before I use them. The reason for this is your monitor, I don't give a fuck how expensive or cheap it is, I'm willing to bet you fucked with the settings at least a little bit. So your monitor is not color accurate to how phones work. If you have a Samsung or a phone that has a little bit more of an in-depth display, you might have changed the color settings around a little bit. But if you're a basic dumbass and you have an iPhone, which I can't even talk shit, I have an iPhone, I only have one, so I can actually use a phone. Because if you guys haven't seen my Samsung, always check your thumbnails on your phone beforehand, because they might look a little funky. I've had characters in my thumbnails be completely fucking blacked out because the contrast on my monitor is so weird. It's so weird. Another tip I want to give you is make sure that your subject and your text are the most clearly definable things of your project. This is what people are looking at. Do not clutter your shit up. Do not make them shitty and hard to see. Make them definable. Make them visible from the background. Make them present. Use colors like reds, brighter blues, pinks, purples, and greens. These colors will pull attention. Not only that, but using colors like blue, pink, purple for tech videos, specifically gaming videos. Gamers love RGB shit. And when it comes to RGB shit, the color palette you'll see people using most of the time is pastel, those very desaturated blues, pinks, purples, and they look beautiful. So especially for like Fortnite videos, montages, pink, purple, blue, red, those colors will work for you. I've tried to use greens in some thumbnails. Those videos don't do that well. I don't think it's the color. I think it's just the videos are dog shitting about Xboxes. Another very, very important tip is please try to keep your thumbnails as simple as possible. And it doesn't need to be extremely simple. It just needs to be simple to the point where you're not cluttering up your thumbnail with a bunch of different images. There's a few YouTubers I fucking love. I subscribe to them. I've been subscribed to them for years. But I hate their fucking thumbnails because they're so cluttered with dog shit. Make your thumbnails at least a little bit more simple so people can actually tell what's going on. Don't add too many images, don't add too many PNGs, don't add a fuck ton of anime lines. There's beauty in simplicity. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C, Exhibit D, Exhibit F, Exhibit R. It doesn't fucking matter. There's beauty in simplicity. Make shit simple. Last but not least, brighter's better. You want to grab a kid's attention? Bright fucking flashy colors. When you have bright thumbnails with a lot of color in them, they're actually more catered towards kids. So if you're looking for a younger audience, yeah, brighter thumbnails will do you good. Brighter thumbnails with brighter colors and, like I said, the pastel palette, those videos will do better because they appeal to more people. By more people, I mean more kids. But that is just about the extent of my my Photoshop knowledge. There's a billion other tiny little insignificant things I could teach you guys about all goddamn day, but I've been recording for about 45 minutes. I hope I at least taught you something. If not about Photoshop and how to edit your photos, then at least how to shoot them. Because there's a lot of little things that go into making thumbnails, videos, even like intros and outros. But people really don't like to think about these things. That's the only way you're ever going to grow, is if you stop and you fucking micromanage every last part of your videos and your thumbnails. But again, micromanaging can be the simplest of things. And that's the biggest takeaway I hope people take away from this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to drop a like. Like I said in the beginning, channel memberships should be available, so if you're... I don't know what I was going to say for this. I really need to write scripts better, like honestly. So if you're a CUDA core, you should remember eyes. I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching and supporting the channel, and hopefully next time I'll be back with something that isn't a dogshit Photoshop tutorial. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one.